Hi everyone, this is
Hey,
Rose Bishop here. I am here today with composer Lisa Neher. Hi Lisa.
hey Rose, nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. So this is Sunday, October 2nd. We are recording this now because Lisa had a previous engagement on Tuesday. So
Mhm.
I wanted to do a little bit of an interview with Lisa so she could talk about her pieces and what inspired her to write these wonderful pieces for flute.
Mm.
Yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before I get into my questions?
Sure. So, hi everyone, and sorry I can't be there. I've got Portland Opera Chorus rehearsal every Tuesday for as far as the eye can see for Carmen. So I'm Lisa Neher. I am a composer. I'm also a professional mezzo soprano, and I specialize in contemporary repertoire. I teach composers and singers about their art and also about making their careers and the business side of things. So that's kind of my career side. And I'm originally from south of Seattle, spent quite a bit of time in the Midwest as a graduate student and also starting my career as a performer and composer and teacher. And then returned to Portland, 4 years ago and have been building up the career, here. And it's been really wonderful to return to the Pacific Northwest. But I love to stay connected to my friends like Rose, who are out in Iowa and making wonderful music. So this is really exciting.
Yay! Well, thank you so much. I mean, I am just so grateful to get to work with you. Lisa and I met, we both went to the University of Iowa for graduate degrees, and, she just never got rid of me. I started commissioning her. This was right before the shutdown. We had started
Mm-hmm.
out Night Song for Moths for piccolo, and I really wanted to showcase this instrument, which she did so well. And then we recorded an EP together, which then led to my solo debut album, Diversions, which
Yay.
premiered exactly a month ago, which is
Yay.
wild. So I recorded and performed three of her pieces: Night Song for Moths, for solo piccolo, Reach Out for solo flute, which was not commissioned by me, and then uh, Seal Mother
Yeah.
for
The
solo
newest.
flute, the newest one, which I gave the
Mhm.
premiere of recently. So yeah, tell us what inspired you to write each piece, and then what do you ask the performer to keep in mind as
Mm.
approach and perform it?
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. So in that same order, let's talk about Night Song for Moths. So we talked a lot about what you love about the piccolo, and what's really cool about writing for the piccolo solo is, in large ensemble, we're sort of taught as composers, you pull out the piccolo and you want to pull out all the stops and like super high. But solo, you get to explore such a wider range because you're not competing with any texture and you can do a lot of neat things. So we really wanted to highlight the low register. And I'm very inspired by nature and animals and landscapes. I usually have at least some kind of picture in my mind or critter or a landscape or sometimes something more of a story, but at least something that's inspiring me. And so Night Song for Moths contrasts three different textures. There's this low ascending and then later descending texture in the piccolo that represents the rising and setting of the moon. And then there's an irregular flitting about texture that's inspired by moths. And I love that when you look at an animal and look at how it moves, it really inspires interesting things with rhythm and also with pitch and direction. Much more interesting than what I could come up with if I didn't go look at how a critter's acting in the world. And so I really wanted to capture that sort of irregularity with different lengths of phrases and different directions and sort of surprising, wonderful turns. And then there's a more steady rhythm of sort of rippling waves and rippling water that's more calming. And so the piece explores those three textures. And I guess, for me, I would just love any performer who performs Night Song for Moths to think about what those images mean to them and pour that in. My music, especially solo music, it's so great because there's so much space. There's no one else to coordinate with. My music really involves these moments for the performer to do some rubato or to shape a phrase the way they would like to. And part of my great joy is getting to hear different performers make each piece their own. So I love that about Night Song for Moths. Reach Out was written in the beginning part of the pandemic for the Gabriella Lena Frank Creative Academy of Music Gig Through COVID initiative. And that was a project where Gabriella Lena Frank, a fantastic composer and mentor for young professional composers or emerging professional composers of any age, wanted to support performers who were out of work during the first phase of the pandemic when everything shut down really fast and unexpectedly. So alumni of her composer mentorship program, myself included, volunteered our time to write miniatures that then a grant paid these out of work performers to premiere with an online premiere. And so that was written for Reo Ferruta, who's a fantastic flutist in California. And that song is really inspired by the feelings of longing for connection that were really heightened in that first phase. And actually, I feel like hit home in a different way 2.5 years into this global pandemic. I certainly feel like it's a piece that for me as a composer has a lot different meanings now than it did before. Reach Out has these ascending sort of yearning motives that kind of reach up and then sort of slowly come down. But then there are also these bursts of pretty wide arpeggios, I think fourths and fifths. I love those stacking fourths and fifths a lot, that are also sort of these bursts of more activity and maybe bigger emotions, or however you read that. That's more of a conceptual piece. So that's kind of what inspired me. But again, maybe a performer will connect and have their own story to it. And that's kind of part of my joy. So whatever that speaks to you, if you're performing Reach Out, go with it. And Seal Mother, which Rose and Hal I commissioned, that actually has the closest like story. That's inspired by Irish Selkie mythology that are these half human, half seal creatures that they transform between seal and human. And in a lot of the myths, it's a woman Selkie who like either falls in love with a human man or sometimes is sort of tricked into staying on land in human form by the human man when he hides her seal skin while she's up on shore. And then later on, oftentimes after they've had children, and maybe she's very happy, and some of them, this is like a mutual thing, but when she finds her seal skin, she's just compelled to go back to the water, even though she's leaving her children behind. So Seal Mother envisions a mother Selkie in her seal form, like watching her children from the water, but not able to return to them. And so there are these really beautiful air sounds that we use in the low kind of register of the flute, that to me were inspired by splashing surf or wind on the water. And then there's also a very haunting melodic line that gradually transforms into sort of a reimagining of a folk song called The Great Selkie, that's a Scots ballad. And there's a lot of embellishments as well that are inspired by like Irish whistle music. So that's part of my heritage. My mom's side of the family is all Irish, and I've always loved the sort of folk harmonies of the piece. So again, I would just, if someone wants to perform Seal Mother, connect with whatever part of that story speaks to you, that sort of separation or maybe guarding or whatever, and then enjoy like all these different colors and the sort of rubato in the piece. All of these pieces have a fair amount of rubato and moments for you to sort of stretch or move as you feel it. And that's what I hope people will do, is just go with their instincts and trust your musical instincts.
I think that's one of the things I like the most about your music is
Oh,
getting to interpret it in a completely different way than someone else. Getting to tell your story through this music. I mean, it was getting to like work on them and learn them and perform them was really exciting.
mm,
So much of our music is just very much like in time and tempo, kind of in a box, and you give
mm.
us this circle and say, "All right, go for it."
Yay! Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah.
I love them. Obviously, I
Yay.
played all three of them. Yeah, I mean they're such great pieces.
Thanks.
So you're from the Pacific Northwest.
Hmm.
Does that shape any part of this? I know I visited Portland
That's
last summer
right.
for the first time,
Yeah.
and I spent a lot of time out at the ocean, just
Hmm.
breathing in the fresh air. And I mean, it was I grew up in the South near Georgia. I used to go to Florida all the time for the beach, and it was completely different
Yeah,
playing
it's really
there. And it really made me think a lot about Seal Mother, like kind of
different.
envisioning that as I was like preparing that piece.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. And yeah, my grandfather, he connected a lot with family, sort of more distant cousins, and sort of reconnected a lot of the extended family in Ireland. And I never got to go to Ireland yet, but I hope to sometime. But I was always amazed at just different, there were some different parallels between the Pacific Northwest, like weather and even shoreline, sort of the rocky, rugged coast that we have along a lot of the shoreline. So I definitely think that makes its way into my music. You know, I grew up visiting the ocean or visiting like different inlets and bays along the west coast with my parents, going to the mountains and hiking. I've always been very interested in the animal life that I saw there, and interested in how they move, interested in how um animals, we see ourselves in them, but like we can never completely understand what it's like to be a moth or to be a seal. And I think that fascination is what brings me back to exploring animals through music, or exploring landscapes and nature through music. I have a lot of respect too for the kinds of intelligence that certain animals or even like plants have that we don't have, and how we've sort of created a hierarchy of species that puts us at the top, even though, I can't fly like a moth, and I can't hold my breath as long as a seal, even though like a seal is also a mammal and has like so much in common with me biologically. But like that little difference in DNA is a huge difference. And kind of, how dare I put myself on a pedestal above these animals? So yeah, I think for sure that those aspects of my childhood have led to the kind of inspiration that I'm finding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I love it. I love it so much.
Oh.
For each of these pieces that I featured on Diversions, um, one might say the work is inspired by or embraces sort of the vocal sounds and singing in a way.
Mm.
What are your thoughts about how your instrument and voice shapes your composing?
Ooh, yeah.
You're
Well,
also
sometimes I do compose by humming. Like I have some piano skills. I took piano a lot of time as a child, and a little bit in college. So I do use the piano as a tool to compose, but I also like to hum and sing to compose. And I think it's a lot of things that are similar between singing and wind instruments, right? And the flute in particular, right? I mean, the dynamic curve, where there's sort of an intuitive quality to those of us who play the flute or sing, that the lower notes are a little softer and the higher notes are more full, more resonant, and at a certain point more shrill or piercing even, right? So those dynamic and color curves kind of follow. Also breath, and sort of about how long, a lot of my composition students will ask me for some like hard and fast seconds or bars or beats for how long a phrase can be. And I think that's a totally understandable question. If you play a wind instrument or if you sing, you can sort of start to get that intuition going of about how long. And also, to be honest, I just get the intuition that like, well, if someone needs to breathe, they'll do it in a beautiful, artful way. And that sort of trust, right? But if you're coming from a different background, obviously, like my job as a teacher is to help you try to build that skill. And I also think, especially, well, anytime, but I think especially in these unaccompanied pieces that are, all three of these are unaccompanied, there's so much space for color. You don't have to worry about cutting over anyone else. Like that's the thing they're always talking to us as singers about, is like, you gotta be sure you cut over the orchestra if you're doing opera. And you see that then like opera composers are writing in a particular register and with a particular, attention to certain parts of the phrase so that it'll be heard. But if you take all that away, there's so many cool things we can do in a more intimate ensemble, or in a space where the other people are taking a break, right, in chamber music. So I love that, because we do get to use these like really subtle pitch bends and breathy sounds and things like that could feel, I think, a lot more concerning if we had to do them as performers over a piano even, right? It would have to be really sensitively orchestrated. And so there's so much freedom and color to the flute and to through the three flutes that these pieces represent, that's something that I think has a lot of connection to the colors we get out of the voice too.
Well, and the other part I love about you as a composer is you asked so many questions, like, if you do this technique, what does it sound like? If how do you feel about these air pitches, or these different ways of articulation? I mean, you really like collaborated with me in a way that I had never experienced when commissioning a piece. Um, and I feel like we kind of like grew this like baby together. Because I mean,
I
you
agree.
you clearly know and love the flute. I mean, I had never worked with a composer who used the different colors or the different sort of extended techniques in the way that you did. I mean, it was so unique. And yeah, clearly you love flutes and
Yes.
clearly you're good at it. Do you want to tell
Thanks.
us your most recent accomplishment for Reach Out?
Oh, yeah. Well, even before then, Rose performed Reach Out at Carnegie Hall.
You did.
So that was really exciting. And then, wow, just hot off the presses, Reach Out was awarded the Flute New Music Consortium Prize for a solo flute piece, which is just a huge honor. And I'm really excited for the piece to continue to go out there and grow. And you were kind of using this metaphor of parenting. And I think, the picture that we have of a composer sort of sitting in a desk composing alone, or sitting at the piano composing alone, certainly there are moments, just like a practice room alone or a living room alone for a performer, that is true. But really, it's the co-parenting process with collaborating with people like Rose, and getting questions from other folks who have the score, who I haven't met, who have a question or a comment, or just letting me know when they're performing it. Like all of that, music, it takes a community to share music, and that's what's so joyful about it. And so I'm really excited to see where we go next. And even your performance of Reach Out and Night Song at the Portland Flute Society last year is what led to this conversation that we're having now, and in person, right, that you're going to be at. So just connecting with people is it's so joyful. And I really want, as a composer, to not be that person who's siloed off, to like ask the questions, get all of your wonderful, fabulous insights about how to make a piece shine. Why wouldn't I, want all of that great info?
Well, and one could argue you should reach out.
Yeah. Yes, please. People, reach out to me. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
for
love it.
sure.
I love it so much. I just am so grateful that
Oh,
we
me
met
too.
and we get to do this together. And yeah, for anyone interested in your music, how do we find your music?
Yeah. So my first and last name, music, lisanehermusic.com is the best place to start. You can also find me on the social medias, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you search for me, I'm not really on TikTok yet, but I'm on those three. And feel free to contact me. And also, the leadership of this meeting has my email, so you can also reach out through them. And I'd love to hear from you. Just anything, question, comment, just to say hi. My joy is to connect with people. It's what makes life so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, do you want to tell us about your latest project?
Oh, yeah, I'm super excited. So, still in the world of woodwinds, but for a lower woodwind, I'm just finishing up a bassoon sonata, three movement bassoon sonata, Sunflower Sea Star. And this is a commission. It's a consortium commission, actually, my first one. So we're in this period where bassoonists get to join us and co-commission the piece. And it's all about the Sunflower Sea Star, which is the second largest sea star in the world, uh, reaching about 3 feet across. And they're very, very endangered, unfortunately. But they were native up and down the West Coast until quite recently, and they can still be found by some folks if they really, really hunt for them. So I'm really enjoying writing this piece. It's going to have a lot of fun, different textures, and be exciting to have it come to life with all the wonderful co-commissioners that are joining the project.
Yay! Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. And hello, everyone, again. And please say hi virtually, and let's connect in person as soon as we can.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for inviting us for this. We're just so grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much.